Welcome to r/entitled people, where a wild Karen is trying to steal her ex-husband's property. Entitled ex-wife thinks she deserves my property inheritance. My ex-wife, Donna, who's 51, and I, 48, male, have been divorced, although divorced might not be the right term for it since our marriage was annulled after 5 months, for the better part of 11 years now. Recently, I found out my grandfather willed everything he had left to me, even though our family is considerably large after he passed away 2 years ago. And yes, I didn't know that he had passed. He lived in upstate New York while I live in Florida. We hadn't seen each other in almost 10 years, so I didn't know that he had me as the sole proprietor for all of his belongings. When the lawyer finally reached out with the information, it struck me as odd that he would wait 2 years to do so. I was heartbroken to learn of my grandfather's passing. I rushed to New York for the reading of the will. To my surprise, my brother, who's 50, myself, and my ex were there. After the reading of the will, my brother came to me and told me the reason he wasn't listed in the will along with the rest of the family was simply because he didn't want anything. My ex was the next to approach. She told me that she was suing me for the land, claiming she was entitled to it because we were married and she had gotten nothing after the annulment. I told her I would meet her in court. This is set for later, considering I would have to travel for that. I did meet with a lawyer, and he said the judge will most likely toss the case because of the annulment. After the reading, I confronted Donna. "You have no right to any of this," I said firmly. "We were only married for 5 months, and the marriage was annulled. You know that means it's as if it never even happened legally." Donna crossed her arms. "I have every right," she shot back. "I sacrificed a lot for you during those months. Just because the marriage was annulled doesn't erase what I went through. I should get something in return for that." I started getting really angry. "You sacrificed? We barely had a marriage, Donna, and you ended up getting a lot more than I did from our split. Why are you so determined to take this away from me? This was my grandfather's last wish." "Because it's not fair," she exclaimed. "You always get everything handed to you, and I'm tired of it. This land could be my chance to start over." I shook my head in disbelief. This isn't about fairness. It's about respecting my grandfather's wishes. And if you want to fight this in court, then so be it. But don't expect me to just roll over because you think you deserve something you don't. Donna glared at me, but she didn't say another word. We can fight this out in court if she really wants to, but there's no way in heck I'm letting her get away with undoing my grandfather's last wishes and doing me over in the process. Am I the jerk for wanting to be backstage mom at my stepdaughter's dance recital during her mom's custodial time? I've been taking my stepdaughter, who's 9, to her dance classes for 4 years. I drive her every week. My husband, her dad, and I pay for every single fee associated with her dance school. This year, her end-of-year recital lands on her mother's custodial time. Her mom is committed to taking her to the show. I volunteered to be the backstage parent, managing the class backstage when they're not performing, helping with hair and makeup, etc. I did this for the last 2 recitals, and my stepdaughter loves having me there to hang out and support her. The dance school reached out yesterday to tell me that my stepdaughter's mother asked them to remove me as backstage parent and put her in. They agreed to do it without discussing it with me first because she basically told them it was her custodial right. To be clear, nothing in their court order says anything about this type of situation. Mom and I have a history of high conflict. I believe she's trying to remove me because she doesn't want me spending any extra quality time with her daughter. She simply hates me and my husband. If you're wondering, I had nothing to do with why she and my husband didn't work out. I could bow out and accept this because I'm not the biological parent, but it breaks my heart because I love being there and dance is my thing with my stepdaughter. Would I be the jerk if I reminded the school who their paying customer is and asked them to go back on the decision and advocate for me? I want to fight back and give them all the context so they can understand why I have the right to be there. But I also don't want more conflict with Mom, who would be upset if the school has my back. If you're wondering, I don't think she would go to the lengths of not taking her to the recital over this, because she has to know that would be devastating for her daughter who's worked hard to prepare for her performance. I'm not sure what the best way for all of this to play out would be. Update. I called the dance school, but not to have them change their decision. I gave them all of the context. I should have clarified in my original post that she lied to them and implied I wasn't legally allowed to be there on her time, which is not true. The owner of the school says he feels completely manipulated by her mom. He apologized, he offered to make it right, and said he and his wife, the co-owner, were comfortable with reaching out to Mom and telling her that I'm the backstage mom. They also said it would never happen again. I told them that I really appreciated that they're owning up to how it went down, but I told them that I would rather take the high road and leave it at that. I told them not to reach out to Mom. Let her have it. I also apologized to them for having to deal with drama that should have been handled by our family privately. The only thing that matters to me is that my stepdaughter has a wonderful experience. I could have won this, but if that would have created even an inkling of stress for my stepdaughter on her big day, it wouldn't be worth it. My plan is to tell my stepdaughter, "Hey, I know I said I'd be backstage this year, but great news, your mom wants to do it. You guys will have so much fun together. I'm glad she will be there for you." Then I'll be in the audience with a bouquet of flowers and a huge smile on my face. Thanks to everyone, even the jerks. Not the jerk, but let her have this one time. Be ready just in case. After that, make certain the dance school contacts you or your husband if she tries something again, but also cautiously see your stepdaughter's reaction after. Everyone sucks here. I understand why it hurts, but part of being a step-parent is understanding that there are times you have to step back and let the primary parents do their thing. You've been backstage mom twice. Let the biological mom have a turn. Am I the jerk for removing my wife's kid out of my will because I discovered he's not mine? I've been married for 15 years with my wife, and our son is 18. I think I was a good father to him, always present, always supporting him. I was the first one he talked to when he had a bullying problem, a math problem, and when he needed romance advice. However, recently I discovered that he's not actually my kid. My mother-in-law said she had to tell me something important, so I went to meet with her, and she told me that the kid is actually my wife's high school boyfriend's baby. She gave birth at 20, but apparently she was cheating on me with her old boyfriend. My mother-in-law said my wife told her the truth after he was born because she had suspected that the baby didn't exactly look like me, and mother-in-law confronted her about it, but the baby was already born and nothing could be done. I was mad and asked her, why is she telling me this now? She told me it's because she saw my son hanging out with his biological dad at a park and believes that he is back in their lives. I decided not to shoot the messenger and went out to confront my wife and son about this. After a long argument, they told me the truth. The biological dad was back and wanted to meet his real son. A lot of things have happened and I'm divorcing now, and also cutting my wife's son out of my will because I never had a son, and all this time I was putting all my energy and effort into raising another man's kid. I'm also consulting if it's possible to sue the biological dad for all the money I've spent raising his biological son throughout the years. My wife is obviously mad at me, and her son is just devastated. I can see that he's depressed, not talking to me, and constantly apologizing. My plan was to divorce and cut contact with them right after that, but now I'm wondering if I'm going too far by punishing him too. Edit. Everyone is asking this. The kid knew about his biological dad for about 4 months before I discovered it. And yes, we did a DNA test. He insisted a lot of it, and after it came back negative is when I think his depression really hit. Y'all are right. Maybe it is useless to sue the biological dad, but I'll ask a lawyer anyway. Edit 2. Many people are comparing my situation to being a stepdad or an adoption. There is a difference. I thought for over 18 years that he was my real son. I 100% believe that adoptive parents are real parents and their adopted kids are their real kids. But they willingly went into the adoption process. They know their family is not blood family. I was tricked into my situation. If I had known my wife after the baby was born, I wouldn't have cared because I knew it was somebody else's son. But I thought this was my real son, and just now I find out that he isn't. Anyway, I need to talk to him when he feels like it. Pretty convenient for biological dad to come into the picture when his financial duties would be over. OP. Yes, I'm sure it was no accident. That poor kid. He's not at fault for this situation, but he sure is being punished for it. How do you think he feels finding out the man he has known as his dad his entire life isn't, and now is tossing him aside? Wow, what a horrible mother. What a disgrace. Should also be remarked, OP, are you this kid's father or not? Like, sure, not biological. That's the mom's deception. But do you want this kid in your life or not? Are you going to toss all that out the window and punish yourself and the kid who views you as their father because of this woman? Your son just found out his entire life is a lie, and the man he thought was his father no longer loves him. Can you honestly say you don't love him anymore? After all the diapers, sick days, sports games, school assemblies, everything y'all did together while he was growing up over the last 18 years. Was literally the only reason you loved him because you thought you shared blood? You should have a conversation with him. Probably more than one, and figure out what your relationship can be moving forward if you can have one at all. You're not the jerk for your feelings, but you need to be careful about your actions, as they can easily make you one. This poor kid. I'm dumbfounded by people here supporting him. OP, your son's life is turned upside down, and your reaction is to cut contact with him because he lied to you over something emotionally confusing? Blood or not, you have been this kid's only father. People become parents to non-biological kids all the time. You may not be his biological father, but you're his dad. You're so willing to let go of a kid you loved. You are willing to add more grief to the situation because he didn't handle it the way you wanted. Were you ever a good parent if you're able to stop loving him because you're hurt? You're the jerk. Frankly, the biggest one I've seen on this sub. You can leave your wife, but to leave your son is incomprehensible. Not the jerk. The same thing happened to a buddy of mine. His dad found out he wasn't biologically his son when he was 16 and basically told him, "Look, I will always love you, but your mom is a real jerk and she really messed up. Because of her poor choices, you're now in a bad spot and won't be in my will or having me pay for your college. This isn't on me. This is on your sorry excuse of a mother lying to me for all these years. It will be up to her and your biological dad to pay for your college." My friend and his dad still have a good relationship to this day, but he ended up going no contact with his mom. Not the jerk to divorce her. She sucks. But treating your son like he hasn't been your son for the last 18 years? What the heck? He didn't choose you any more than you chose him. He clearly loves you and sees you as his father. Imagine yourself in his shoes. He was your son all this time. You're the only father he's ever known. Forget biology. You have a son. You raised him. It is realistic that he would want to meet his biological dad. That's something that happens because humans want to explore their own identity, where they came from, etc. Forget her, forget everyone else. But this person has been your son and you've been his dad for all of his life. And you're going to just leave him without an actual father because the biological dad literally can't just step into that role, your role, at this point? So he doesn't gain a dad, he gets a connection with a stranger until now, and he loses you, his actual dad. You're the jerk for doing this, and to heck with you for throwing this precious human connection away. Am I the jerk for calling my sister-in-law to pay for her own breakfast bill? My father-in-law has breakfast every Saturday morning at a restaurant. He gets there at 6 a.m. when they open and usually stays until 8:30 or so. His kids and grandkids drop in and out. Most do not stay the whole time, and they either pay their own checks on the way out or leave him cash to cover their bill, and he pays before he leaves. Last Saturday, I went late and crossed him leaving. My wife and daughters waited for me. I ordered and they chatted while I ate. They headed home while I went to the counter to pay the check. It was $171. I immediately asked for an itemized receipt, and after a bit of hesitation, the waitress provided it. I took one look and knew I had been stuck with my sister-in-law's check too. The waitress confirmed that she had been there early and didn't pay before leaving. The waitress assumed someone else would pay it, as they sometimes do. I requested that she separate the checks. My family of 4 was $60. Sister-in-law's family of 3 was $111. The manager came over to discuss the situation and said I could pay, sister-in-law could come in within 30 minutes and pay, or he would call the police. I called sister-in-law and she said she was out of town and asked me to pay it and she'd pay me later. I told her she could Venmo or Cash App me right away and I'd pay it. She asked the total and I told her. She then asked what her share was, and I told her that was her total as we had separate checks. She didn't understand how breakfast for 3 could be $111. I read the ticket. Coffee, orange juice, milk, and Coke for everyone. Double cheeseburger with fries and a side of hash browns. Add grilled onions and mushrooms, extra cheese and bacon. All this other stuff she had too. It was a ton of breakfast. So the total was $111. She said she didn't understand how it added up to so much. I told her that was how much her family always ordered, so I didn't understand how she didn't understand how all the extra things added up. But I wasn't willing to spend my whole Saturday dealing with it. She could send me money right away to pay her check, or I was leaving without paying it. She sent me the exact amount, no tip. I paid, tipped the waitress, and I left. I told my wife, and she said that her sister never leaves enough to cover her bill. Sister-in-law called my father-in-law and complained that her day was ruined. They were planning to go to the opening weekend of the water park and buy season passes, but couldn't afford it after paying for breakfast. He thinks I'm a jerk for putting her on the spot, knowing they probably couldn't afford $100 for breakfast. He says he forgot she had been there and thinks I should have just paid and asked for the money later and says that he would have paid me if she didn't. So, am I the jerk for asking a 30-something-year-old woman to pay for her own forgotten breakfast check and insisting that she paid me right away because she has a history of not repaying debts? Not the jerk. If you don't have $111 to spare for breakfast, you don't order a $111 breakfast. This isn't some random tragedy she had no control over. My team sent me a bag of garbage while I was recovering from surgery. I'm currently covering a maternity leave and had to go in for a not insignificant surgery. It was complicated by the fact I seem to be working with the real-life version of Mean Girls, most frequently with a Regina George stand-in. I ended up having my surgery and negotiating remote work for my recovery. I'm feeling a lot less stressed, even though I logged back in the day after my procedure and got right back to it. Today, 2 coworkers I've gotten close to came by for a visit, and the weirdest work gift situation ever came up. They both gave me a lovely gift and treated me to dinner, and then sheepishly looked at each other, sighed, and said the office had a gift as well. I could tell they felt really weird about it. It was a reusable shopping bag filled with garbage, a used pair of unwanted scuffed shoes, several junk mail brochures, expired tea from the office kitchen, some dusty old plaque from the 90s, and a Sublime CD. I was taken aback. I asked what this was supposed to be. They told me the people at the office said they should try to keep a straight face, like this was a legitimate gift, that it was supposed to give me a laugh. It did not. I said I really appreciated the thoughtful gift and the dinner and the visit from the 2 of them, but that this joke gift wasn't really appropriate and didn't fit the relationship we all have as coworkers. Rather than gentle ribbing, it felt like being in grade 9 gym class all over again. They apologized profusely, and I asked them to take the bag back with them on the way out. With the injury recovery, I can't actually leave my apartment for the next while, because I couldn't get it down to the garbage myself. Don't get me wrong, I like joke gifts. I've given them and received them in the past, but when I've been on a team that did this, A, it wouldn't be actual garbage, and B, it would be followed by something thoughtful. Restaurant delivery, grocery, taxi gift card, etc. They just gave me actual garbage. And I'm going to be asked how I liked my gift on Monday, and I have no idea what to say. Typically, I would do a warm thank you and find something to like about a gift, even if it wasn't my thing. But what do you even say about this? That I was confused? That I'm not sure what to say? I don't really want to laugh along with it. I thought it was awful. Any advice would be appreciated. I've not really encountered a situation like this before, and most of my friends are just as stumped. Update. I got asked how I liked the gift on a call this morning, and I said I didn't really understand it or have a place for anything in the bag, and couldn't get down to take it out myself, so asked the coworkers to take it back with them. They seemed to honestly think I would enjoy it. It's so bizarre. I'm so glad I'm working from home. As for my couple of nice coworkers, it's definitely a case of the office being so awful that a bag of garbage didn't seem that bad. Update. The most awful team conference call the next day. Regina really did think I would play along, asking how I liked my gift in a joking tone, and I straight up told her I didn't understand or appreciate the gift, nor could I get down the stairs to dispose of it and had to send it with the coworkers, who I then thanked warmly for their actual gift that they gave me. Maybe it wasn't the most mature response, but honestly, I hit the ground hard as soon as I could, looking for a new job. I spent a few weeks resting up and getting my work done, but refused anything above my role, which might sound terrible, but Regina had a bad habit of promising the actual impossible, like a custom usable typeface designed in an afternoon, or a massive marketing campaign for major artists like Taylor Swift, executed in under a week with no budget. I wish I was exaggerating. I handed in my 2 weeks notice a couple months after the garbage incident. Regina was weird the whole time, going back and forth between being bitter, "I hope you enjoy your next job because I'll be stuck here forever," and weird weepy declarations of how much they'd miss me, accompanied by awkward hugs. I stayed in touch with a few coworkers, all of whom left shortly after I did. We still chat every now and then, sometimes to make sure it all actually happened and wasn't a collective fever dream. I'm happily working back in tech, full-time remote. I've worked a couple of gigs over the past 5 years, and while startup life can be a little bro-y, the worst I've had to deal with gift-wise was the rise and fall of branded pop sockets. Am I the jerk for not choosing my parents as godparents for my newborn daughter? I, 27 female, have been married to my husband, 36 male, for 2 years, and we've been together for a total of 5 years. My husband has 2 daughters from his previous marriage, and 3 months ago, I gave birth to our first baby. When my husband and I first got together, his daughters were very young, and I've been pretty much fully involved in their upbringing ever since we got together. Their mother isn't around, so they pretty much view me as their mom, and I absolutely view them as my own. We've been a happy family together from the start. My parents, on the other hand, weren't as supportive of my close relationship with my daughters. They always told me that it isn't my job to play mommy to kids that aren't biologically mine. This definitely created a wedge between us because no matter how many times I told them how important they are to my life, they still refused to accept them, which I guess they have a right to. My in-laws, on the other hand, have been completely supportive of my close relationship with them since day one, and they truly make me feel like part of the family, regardless of whether the kids are mine biologically. About a year after my husband and I got married, I brought up the idea of me legally adopting our daughters so that in the extreme case of something happening to my husband, I would be able to continue taking care of them without having to go through legal troubles. And again, my parents were extremely against that idea, regardless of my husband and I being married and me pretty much being involved with the girls their entire life. 3 months ago, my husband and I had our first daughter together, and in our town, it's a tradition to choose godparents for a newborn, even though we aren't really religious. My husband and I both agreed that it would be best for his parents to become our daughter's godparents since they've been supportive of our family from the start. When my parents found out we weren't choosing them as godparents, they got upset with us because they felt like they should have been the godparents to their first grandchild. But since they never were supportive of our family, I didn't feel like they deserved to demand anything like this. Am I the jerk? Did your parents have a problem with the age difference? As an adult, it was your choice, but I can see how they may be concerned about a 22-year-old getting with a 31-year-old man and immediately caring for his kids. Yes, I would be very concerned if my hypothetical 22-year-old new college grad became a full-time mommy to a 31-year-old's kids immediately. It's like OP stepped into the mother/wife-shaped vacancy in this family without fully exploring any other avenues of life. I would feel apprehensive for my daughter. Adopting after 1 year of marriage would worry me regardless of marriage. It's very risky. She's still young and at a vulnerable and, dare I say, naive age. Even if the guy seemed perfect, the possibility of early separation and getting stuck paying child support to some dude a decade older than my daughter would worry me like crazy. She pretty much married the first adult she met. She'd barely experienced life yet, and at 22, I'd hardly consider anyone an adult. You have such a limited amount of life experience, you're just starting. And yeah, I'd definitely side-eye a guy in his 30s pursuing you if you were my daughter. When I was late 20s, I remember seeing 21-year-olds and thinking that they looked like they were still in high school, like they must be using fake IDs or something. Any parent would be concerned. She's 27 now, and they got married 2 years ago, which means she was 25 then, and when they decided on her adopting the kid, she was 26. Still young, yes, but definitely an adult. I can also understand her parents' concern when she was 22, but at this point, they ought to accept the fact that their daughter is an adult and gets to make her own decisions about her own family. OP is not the jerk, and I'm willing to bet she's a great mother to all 3 of her kids. So, when you were 22, you met a man nearly a decade older than you that got you taking care of his kids as soon as you had started dating, and you're wondering why your parents were suspicious from the start. I'd give your parents a bit of grace on this one if they are overall good parents, as I would be concerned for my daughter if I were in their shoes and hope you would be as well for yours. Overall, we have no idea how your marriage actually is, but as a parent, I get why they would be suspicious. And of course your in-laws would be happy that there's someone raising their grandkids. There is no great virtue on this part. So you were 22 when you got involved with an older guy with kids, and you became an insta-mommy/babysitter for him? And you wonder why your parents didn't immediately support your decision? Not the jerk. But why is it that when a man gets with a single mom and starts playing the father role and supporting them financially, everyone applauds him and says what a saint he is? But when a woman steps into a motherly role for another man's kids, y'all are so concerned for her and think she's being used. Oh, that's right, because Reddit is nothing but a giant double standard. Am I the jerk for not inviting someone to the community block party since people don't like her? I live in a little neighborhood, a lot of kids and grandmas. The community is pretty nice besides one person. A new woman moved in by the hill in the fall. She's right next to the park where people hang out. The problem is, she is mental about her property. She has a very big area and there's no line from the park to where her property is. If your ball goes over, she will go over and tell you to get off her property. The kids' school bus stop is right there, and like 40 kids get on in the morning. They all don't fit on the sidewalk and will stand in the grass. She put a sprinkler there and soaked all of them before school. They were not messing things up. In the winter, she yelled at a group of kids having a snowball fight, and they went over the line. It's happened so many times, and it's happened when people were still technically in the park. I wish she would just put up a fence since it would actually show where it begins. So basically, no one in the neighborhood likes her. The kids don't like her, the parents don't like her, and even the old ladies find her to be destroying the peace. We're supposed to have a block party in about 2 weeks, and I organized it. This year, I got a petition to not include her. I also moved it so it would be on the other side of the park so no one would be anywhere near her property. I sent out invites to all of the homes besides hers. She came up to me and asked why she didn't get an invite. I told her because the neighborhood thinks she's a jerk. She called me a jerk, and I'm morally conflicted. This is being paid for by all of the neighbors, not by the city. Not the jerk. You told her the truth when asked. Soaking kids with a sprinkler is over the line of acceptable behavior. You could talk to the school or the city about that. I'm going with not the jerk, but I would take a different approach. I would let her know the specific things she's done to alienate her community neighbors, and that those actions have made the neighbors not want to party with her. But still invite her and let her know that she can apologize and begin to make changes to her behavior if she wants to be included. But I wouldn't continue giving her the benefit of the doubt if she declines to be neighborly and continues her hostile behavior towards the community. Not the jerk. If you're unpleasant and a jerk to your community, you can't be surprised when they don't invite you to the community block party. People are saying that everyone should stay out of our yard, and yeah, sure, but installing sprinklers to spray a bunch of students getting on the bus, that's just a jerk move. As far as the kids waiting for the bus, even if she is miserable, it's a good time to reinforce that the kids should not be on her property. I had a friend who lived basically on a school bus stop, and it's a pain to have kids milling on your lawn. That the old owner didn't mind is irrelevant. The kids should move further down the sidewalk rather than on her lawn. They move somewhere when the sprinkler goes on, right? If there's not enough safe space, then pics need to be taken and submitted to the school board with a request to move the stop. Most of us have had to teach our kids such things, that at some point that while a certain adult might seem miserable, technically they're correct in their case that none of them should be standing on her lawn. I have a bus stop in front of my house. The kids were awful, dropping all their school stuff in the middle of my front lawn, running around on the driveway, my front and back porches, screaming, and this was before 7 a.m., running up to the window to scare my cats, and the boys roughhousing like Tasmanian devils, throwing stuff at the house, snack wrappers, drink lids, etc. I called the HOA, and they said it wasn't their issue. Called the school. They told me there's nothing they can do. I begged them to move it. Nope, call the police, the school told me. Somehow a rumor got around that I was going to call the cops, and those kids behaved after that. I think the school told the parents that in the beginning of the school year. I never said that and would never do that unless there was a danger. And I would not turn the sprinkler on them. Although I have been tempted. I work from home, so it was very disruptive, but it's been better this year. A new thing that I have to be very thankful for, not living in front of a school bus stop. Karen demands I pay her hospital bills for having her baby. My immediate family consists of me, 27 male, my wife, who's 29, and our son, who's 8. We rely solely on my income to make ends meet, and while it is sufficient for our own needs, we don't have any extra money to spare. My wife's older sister, who's 31, is going through financial difficulties due to her poor choice in a partner. Her husband was incarcerated for theft while she was pregnant with their first kid. Out of sympathy, we assisted her with everything, and we paid for her pregnancy-related expenses. However, as soon as her husband was released, she became pregnant again. Her husband is lazy and only works a few days per month, sometimes going for months without any employment. Given their situation, I ended up financially supporting her second pregnancy as well. On both occasions, we also gifted her some money. Shortly after giving birth to her second, she became pregnant again with a third baby. At this time, my family was undergoing significant adjustments in our own lives, which involved substantial expenses. During her pregnancy, she repeatedly asked for loans that she never repaid, but we anticipated this and didn't plan on asking for the money back. When the expected date of her third baby's birth arrived, we visited the hospital and provided a monetary gift as we had always done. After the baby was born, the hospital expenses had to be paid, and the sister's husband, who's 38, and his family, they looked at me when the bill arrived. I remained silent and he handed me the bill. I then explained that I couldn't cover the hospital expenses this time. I told him that we had never agreed upon it in the first place. Additionally, I pointed out that the amount we had gifted her was roughly the same as the hospital bill, so it should have covered it. The husband became angry and started speaking negatively about me. He called me a jerk for not paying. His family members also appeared angry and openly criticized both me and my wife. I responded by saying that they can't expect me to pay when we didn't even agree on it beforehand. Am I the jerk? More info. We're from a developing country where government assistance is rare and insufficient. Banking is limited, with most people relying on cash. Insurance is almost non-existent, and upfront payment is required for everything. Loans are mostly inaccessible to the general population. Private hospitals are expensive, while government hospitals are relatively more affordable but still require upfront payment. While a few hospitals allow post-operation payment, it is still required within a short time frame, usually within a few days, before leaving the premises. Not the jerk, but you should stop enabling your sister-in-law. It must be super difficult to see her in this situation, but as long as you provide financial support, she has no reason to change her situation. Not the jerk. If the husband and his family are so upset, they can open their wallets and shut their mouths. Frankly, you're a better person than me. I wouldn't have paid for any of the expenses for any of their kids. Not the jerk. The thing is, you created expectations on their part when you paid before. They assumed that you'd shell out the money like you've done in the past. That's on them. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.